Welcome to the show, everyone. I am so excited. I can't believe that it is October already. It is flying by. We're live on Facebook. So I want to say hi to everybody out there. Like us and follow us. We'll share the show later on. And listen, this is really fun to do. For my 15-year anniversary, which is this year that I've been celebrating, and I'm excited about that, that I want everybody that can, don't do this if you're driving, but go up onto Facebook and put in Networking Arizona and watch us in here doing the show live right now. It's really, really fun to do. I'm going to go in with my first guest, who is Richie Edwards, and he is an attorney with FR Law Group. We just heard your ad. Tell us a little bit about FR Law Group, what makes them different, and then what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, well, the FR Law Group, we think we're different because we have a national level of experience in a small, what I might call a boutique law firm. So we can really give personalized attention, personalized advice, and really spend time getting to know our clients. And I think more importantly, our clients' goals, what their needs are specifically in their business. And then we're backed with the experience of our partners who have practiced all over the country.
All over the country. It's like having the big guns behind you, but they've made it so that the small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses, who we all need attorneys, you know, and you never know when you're going to need one too. What are we going to talk about today?
So it's been just a little while since we've been on, so I wanted to go back some of the issues that we're seeing right now facing small, medium-sized businesses. As I think it's a convergence of a couple of things. It's still coming back from COVID. Things aren't back to normal, even if we're back to normal. The economy is doing what it's doing. Inflation is going, and so there's a lot of things that are happening right now. And as we're seeing the clients that we represent, people that come to talk to us and ask us for advice, a few things right now that are very seem to be top of mind for everybody, and things that are really affecting businesses in the community.
Well, COVID really did hit a lot of businesses. Oh my gosh, especially we had talked about some of the people before you even came on, and about people who had now working at home, and we talked a little bit about what that looked like for them now that the business wants you back on the job in your offices at work. What do you see is happening?
Right. So what we're seeing happening is for a variety of reasons, businesses want people back in the office, whether it's full-time or half-time or some sort of hybrid schedule. They prefer, for a lot of reasons, to have people in the office. Well, the problems that we see them running into now are that their employees, in a lot of cases, have worked from home successfully for 2.5 years now, right? And when you want to bring them back to the office, the employees gotten used to not paying for gas, not dealing with the commute, cooking lunch at home on their break.
It's a lot of fun working from home. It's not easy when the mailman comes to the door and all that, but they do like it. It
can be great, and it can be very flexible. On the other side, businesses obviously want people in offices for great reasons too. The collaboration, the creativity, it helps businesses to be there. What we're seeing people run into is they want to bring their employees back, and the employees are pushing back and saying, well, wait a minute, how? And there's even some cases where they're running into employees refusing to come back. And now the business is faced with this insubordination. And what do? Do we allow them to work from home? Do we fire them? And what causes problems is when a business doesn't have a real strong policy, a handbook, and not only that's strong and that's written, but that its employees know about, that they've acknowledged when they were hired, they've acknowledged when it changed. So then you can just easily say, look, we understand you like working from home. We might be able to work with you, but here's our policy. It's on page 65 or page 5, really, for a smaller business, right? It might not be that long. And it's this paragraph that says you have to come back and work in the office.
But I have to ask you, though, a lot of people say, well, I had a handbook, but it was written before COVID ever was invented.
Mm-hmm.
So
sure.
What then?
Sure. Well, what then is a great question, and it will really depend on what the language is in the handbook and what the situation is, because there are going to be situations where you might not be able to enforce an employee back if they have a disability or there's a reason that working from home is better for them. But in a lot of instances, even if the handbook predates COVID, you can update it and not have the employees acknowledge it and be fine. But even if it predates it, they've still agreed to those terms. And now that businesses are back, right, some of those things that kept people at home aren't necessarily doing that anymore.
Well, I'll tell you something. When we're now dealing with the effects of COVID, is what you're saying.
Sure.
One of these threats of legal action and its impact on a business. Well, that's huge right there.
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it is.
because if you can't hire the person, or you have to, maybe you have to hire the person back. Maybe you don't want that person back no matter
Right.
what. But then you got to go hire somebody, and a lot of people are having trouble with that too now.
Right, we're having trouble hiring back. We're having trouble, with the finances. We've talked about before, having trouble with suppliers. I was reading an article today from the Small Business Administration, and keep in mind as I say this, they define a small business as 500 employees or less. So they're talking about some businesses that I would think of as large, right? But less. So it could be a sole proprietorship to
Right.
a big business. But they say that in a given year, 53% of small businesses are involved in a lawsuit. 43% who aren't involved face the threat of legal action. So we add those numbers up, we're at 96%. In some way or another, 96% of businesses will deal with either litigation or the threat of litigation. And they say that lawsuits cost between $3,000 and $150,000. And I'll tell you, we think we do things very efficiently and economically at the FR Law Group. We're not going to be able to defend your lawsuit for $3,000, not even close. It's just too expensive. So the threat of legal action is a big, it's on the balance sheet for a lot of businesses, and it's something to really think about, because a big lawsuit can ruin a small business if they're not prepared for it.
Absolutely. If it could happen to me, it could happen to anyone. And I had something silly. It was nothing, but it wasn't something that nothing happened. It was fine. It worked out fine. But like I said, I'm a sole proprietor, right? And you just never know when something can happen. And when you're in business, the longer you're in business, the more something could really happen.
Right. And
you want to be prepared, and you want to make sure that you have somebody on your side. FR Law Group are the people to call. Their number direct at 602-566-7425. They do free consultations. You work nationwide. You're right here, though, right in the Valley. And so that's what's really nice about them, is that they're here. They can do consultation with you, and you can find out if you need them. You never know. You should write this number down and put it in your phone.
That's right.
Because, like I said, you never know when it's going to happen. So, and they'll be there to help you. That's 602-566-7425. It's frlawgroup.com. We're going to go now to this: performing or receiving performance of work without a contract. How many people don't have a contract, though?
A lot more than you'd expect.
A lot.
A lot more than you'd expect. You have your suppliers or someone that's just doing a day's worth of work for you, or you're buying some. We recently had a client that has a usual supplier, a usual contractor, does some work for him, couldn't do it, and said, hey, why don't you do it? This other person I know, they're free, they can do it. Okay. Our client thought, well, they're going to do it for their usual price that I have with the other guy. After about a month and a half, they got the invoice, and it was triple the usual price. And they had a big fight about it. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, we had to tell our client, you're probably just going to have to pay the higher invoice, because the problem here now is you don't have a contract for the lower amount. If they sue you, you're probably going to lose, because the law looks at it like, well, you received the benefit of their contract, and who better to set the price than the person who did the work, who runs the business. And that was an unfortunate situation where the client didn't come to us early enough, didn't know they received it, and now they lost money on the job because they had to pay triple what they were expecting to pay. It happens a lot more often than you think.
So, do you help businesses, small, medium, large, I don't know, but with doing those? Like, some people do not have those in place.
Right.
Can they call you and talk to you and have you help them do that?
Absolutely.
That's what I want to know. Go ahead.
One of the things that we do is we call it outside general counsel services. So we know a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, they don't have a legal department that they're paying full-time. But they can hire us to act when they need us. Hey, review contracts. Let's talk about this deal we're thinking about with the supplier. Maybe we have an employee problem. Maybe we want to purchase a new building or enter a new lease. We do all of their things along the way, so to set them up to hopefully never have to litigate. But if they do, they're in a very strong position when that comes.
That's what is important when you hear this kind of information. a lot of us have businesses that we have not taken care of the small, little things that we need to really make sure are covered. It helps us. You can call them, put this phone number in your phone at 602-566-7425. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk further. So we're going to keep on talking.
Sure.
I do want to make sure everything is working on my end over here, but would you also say, so when somebody is to come to you, then honestly they don't have to have necessarily a problem. It could be, help me make sure I don't end up with a problem.
Right.
Let's talk about
That's
that.
exactly right. So I tell people, and it's sometimes hard to tell people, that you're going to pay us when you have a problem, but pay us before then. And the way I tell the people is, look, if you come to us for the very first time and you have a problem, we can help you. But it's going to be very expensive, right? Because we're there. It's like anything. If you do it last minute, it's normally going to be more expensive, and you can't guarantee the best results. On the other hand, if you come to us right from the beginning, we can set things up, we can counsel, we can draft your contracts, we can review contracts from other sides, we can look at your leases, we can help you if you want to make a big purchase on, maybe buy another business or do things. And what we do is we try to set it up so that if litigation comes, then you're in a really strong position.
Right.
But we can avoid it. A lot of litigation can be avoided if we do some work on the front end.
But somebody would say, well, why go to an attorney for that, right?
Sure.
But why do you say that?
Well, I'm not sure, frankly, that there's anybody, even Google, that can write a better contract than we can. And we try to do it.
We're going to talk about that when we come back. That is a great answer.
Sure.
That was great.
Well, good. That's great.
But it's so true, right? I mean, because a lot of people do go to Google
Sure.
for these things.
Right. I was talking to a client last week, and they had gone to Google for a contract. And he said, hey, will you just look this over, make sure it's okay? And I started looking over. It was 16 pages. And I said, hey, it's fine if you want to use this. I have one, though, that I can draft, and we've done them very similar before. It'll be 5 pages, much more simple. It'll get everything you want, and it'll actually hit some stronger points, whereas this 16-page one has, 10 or 11 pages that aren't really applicable to you, but maybe if something goes wrong in the future, you wish it wasn't there.
Right, exactly.
Or was there.
I love that. Yeah, that's important. We're going to talk about that. Contracts is so important, and they don't think to go to an attorney for that. They usually would just think, either Google or maybe, I don't know, I don't even know who normally does that.
Your friend, right? Sometimes it's, but my friend had a business and they had this deal, and so they have some agreement that maybe they drafted or changed from a prior agreement and attorney. And some of those, I'm not going to lie, some of those can be okay, and they won't really harm you in the future, and that's fine. And I'm not saying come to us because we're going to spend a lot of hours. I can spend 30 minutes, look over something and say, hey, this is going to be adequate, it's fine, I don't need to touch it.
Right.
Or give me an hour and a half more, we can put you in a better place, and it'll be worth it rather than spend 10 hours on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome back. We've been talking contracts, during the break, and it was interesting. I love this because I asked you, why go to an attorney to write a contract? People think of going to an attorney when something goes wrong.
Right.
That's it. What was your answer?
Well, my answer was that I don't think there's anybody that can write it as well as we can.
Right.
And our firm specifically, right, I talked at the very beginning, is that we're small enough that we try to really make a personal relationship with our clients. We get to know you, we get to know your business and what your goals are, and that informs our contract even more than if you went to another attorney, especially if you went to Google. I was telling you a story about the person that had, 3 times as many paragraphs and pages in the contract as they needed, and it wasn't really tailored to their needs. We can tailor it to your needs so you don't have any of the extra, and you have everything you need right there, and then it's really easy for you to go back, refer to it, remember what's going on.
You had said that you can look over something in, let's say, a half an hour, look at it, and it might be fine.
Right.
But if you want just a little bit better to more geared toward you, tailored towards you, and your attorney, when you work with them, they're looking out for you. That's their job.
Right.
And thinking of the things that could happen. That's what's really good about you too, is that you're thinking about all those things that could go wrong that you're helping them so that, God forbid, in the future, nothing happens. Now, I implore anyone, you're starting a business, give them a call. If you are already in business, if you think you already have contracts, have them look at it. Because you know what? Your contract may need to be updated, for sure. So their phone number is 602-566-7425. They do free consultations. They're located right here in Phoenix, but they work nationwide. Check them out on their website. It is frlawgroup.com. Now let's go back over here. All right, what is WFH? I'm sure it's something easy. What is it?
No, that was the work from home.
Oh, that's work from home. See, I knew it. Okay, we already talked about that.
Let's go.
When anybody does that, I hate that when they do that to me. Go ahead.
Let's go to, we were just talking about contracts.
Okay.
I think we'll skip a point. Let's go to the contractor versus employee issue, right? So a lot of, we see at least small, medium-sized businesses, they don't use employees, at least when they're starting. They use contractors, independent contractors, people that are doing some work for them, some work for somebody else.
Right.
Well, generally, what we see is a business is starting and they thought, okay, I've heard somewhere that there's a difference in an employee versus an independent contractor, and so let me Google what the difference is, and I'll Google a quick contract and I'll write it. And then we, most of the time, review those contracts, and inevitably we see that it's really an employee the way it's going to go, because whether someone who's performing work for you is an independent contractor or an employee doesn't depend on what you call them.
You know, it's interesting you're bringing this up. A lot of people like to hire people and call them an independent contractor,
right,
because they're not paying them on an hourly basis now.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And I think there's other things, obviously, that they don't have to pay when they do that.
Right. Yeah, sure. You get a lot of there's different tax treatment, right, for what you're paying. There's different state fees. It can, depending on the size of your business, deal with insurance and whether you have to provide insurance or not. It's typically cheaper, and much so, for a business to have an independent contractor if it's feasible for your type of business.
But you should have a contract.
Sure.
With them.
Make sure, right, and that makes them an independent contractor, because you have a contractor, right, they're an independent contractor. They agree. They are not an employee. Well, if what you're actually having them do and the way you're telling them to come to work and when to come to work and what to do and how to do the work, it actually makes them an employee, and then you're stuck because now you're in trouble because you haven't been paying your taxes correctly and you haven't done things exactly right. And I'm not a tax attorney, so I can't get deep into the weeds of that, but I know that there's implications. So we say, come to us, give me, again, a half an hour, look over your contract. If it's good and it's really for an independent contractor, great. That's it. We're not going to charge you 3 hours if we don't need to. But if it's, hey, you need to tweak a few things, give me an hour, let's tweak some things, figure it out so this person really is a contractor. Or say, I think it's better if you have an employee, let's write a new contract, and you start to treat them like employees, and you're better off going forward, right? You mitigate that risk, and that's what we're really trying to do. We want to anticipate problems, mitigate risk, so that you can just enjoy your business, work hard, and enjoy the fruits of that.
It's all about the wording.
Oh,
It
wow.
really is all about the wording. It comes down to, when it comes to contracts, it's how it's worded. And I just said it earlier, if you have contracts, if you're working with people, have them updated for sure. I mean, it makes sense. Sometimes people they bite off their nose to spite their face, right? Because they don't want to spend, they think with attorneys, they just want cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. That's all they think.
That's right.
But that's not how you work. And that the first thing when you came on is they wanted to give you the big guns behind you as that small person. We all need to be protected, and I have to say this more than ever, because now the world has changed. The world has become corporate, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not like it used to be. Right? Where you can just talk to somebody, have a gentleman's agreement or whatever. Right. It doesn't work that way anymore. No,
it doesn't. And more often than not, I believe in the best in people, but more often than not in the business world that we see, if you have the gentleman's agreement, it's not going to end up bad for you. That person, for whatever reason, maybe they can't afford it anymore. Maybe things have changed, or they were a partner in a business and now their partner's taken over and doesn't want to honor the gentleman's agreement anymore. Now you're in trouble, and there's nothing we can do if you don't have it written down, you don't have your contract squared away.
And the other thing is that the other people seem to know the system now.
Yeah.
You know, they know
Sure.
the system, they know it, and God forbid, you know, this is why you need somebody like FR Law Group behind you. And again, it's worth it to have that consultation with them. 30 minutes, give me a half an hour, like you said. Let's look at it. Let's make sure that everything is up to snuff. And if it's not, for an extra hour, whatever it is,
Right.
it's worth it to do, absolutely.
Yes.
That number to call them direct is 602-566-7425. Again, check them out on their website. It is frlawgroup.com. Cybersecurity, I think it's so important that we talk about that, because here's another area that is, it's relatively new to a lot of people that don't even understand it and until it happens to them, right?
That's exactly right. And on the cybersecurity, there's a couple of points, and we don't have a lot of time to get into it. Maybe we'll get into it more next time. But you have to have policies for your employees and your customers to keep data secure, to make sure that things aren't getting out and being sent where they should, right? That's important. And then as important is you need a good cyber insurance policy, because if a breach does happen, if somebody does hack, most of your general liability insurance policies, they're not going to cover anything with cybersecurity, and you're going to be out a lot of money and a lot of time. We've seen it happen to people that we talk to, clients that come to us. We've seen it happen around where they had a breach. Oh no, their insurance policy doesn't cover it. We've even seen it happen where, well, I bought a cyber policy online, and it doesn't actually cover what happened because it was for a different type of business or whatever. So we do a lot of business insurance work. If you're worried about your cybersecurity, and I'd say you need to be, come to us. Let us see what your insurance policies are, what you have in place, and then we can hook you up with a broker who can get you a tailored insurance policy to exactly what you need. That'll help mitigate some of that risk on the back end.
Again, I want you to explain to them how, because again, most people think of hiring an attorney when something goes wrong.
Right.
But no, hire your attorney before anything goes wrong,
Right.
so they can make sure.
Right.
that
We
you're
can help make sure that nothing goes wrong is what we try to do. And of course, if it does, then what we say is, okay, we've done all the work on the front end, so your risk is really small on the back end, even if somebody does still want to sue you, even if the contract's ironclad, right?
Right.
So take care of it now. You'll pay less at the end. It's just that simple.
It is that simple. You've said that many times, when you come on the show, and it's so important for people to listen up to this and the information. And I say this every show. I really love my show for this reason. When you're listening to things like this, and I know a lot of people procrastinate and call when they are ready. I understand
Sure.
that. But please, folks, right now, especially now, in this world that we're living in, having someone like Richie, FR Law Group, they're the people to call, and it's worth every minute of their time that they're going to give you, whether it's that 30 minutes or a little bit longer, to make sure that you're protected. And cyber security right now, that is huge. What are your final words for today?
Well, like always, take care of it now. You'll pay less later, and I promise we're going to be more efficient and better than anybody in the valley.
Absolutely. Their phone number is 602-566-7425. They do free consultations. It's frlawgroup.com.